Welcome back to the Airborne Lawyer YouTube channel, and welcome back to the TBM 930 World Tour. Today we are in Quito, the capital city of Ecuador. And if I were visiting Quito in real life, I may well suffer altitude sickness on arrival. This is the highest constitutional capital in the world, at over 9,000 feet above sea level. This is the downtown core, just over on the top left hand side there. You can see the old international airport in Quito, famed for a very challenging approach, right over the densely populated city centre. The city is home to 2.6 million people, and like much of Ecuador, it's a city with just two seasons, wet and dry. The wet season is from October to May, and June to September is the dry season. So it's currently the wet season, it's currently summer here, so it's quite tropical, and on arrival I encountered an electric storm when I was on approach into the new international airport, which is just a few miles to the east of here, where we're going to be departing from on our way to Panama City. As always, let's take a quick look at the map and check out our route for today. In episode 16, we're going to be leaving Quito and heading north, skirting up the Colombian coast to Panama City, where we'll take a look at the canal. We'll then head up to San Jose, Costa Rica, and then continue north to Tegucigalpa in Honduras. So let's get the strobes on and line up here on runway 36. This is the new international airport in Quito. It opened in 2013 and replaced the old airport which we saw a few moments ago in the opening sequence. This airport is at just 7,900 feet above sea level. The old airport was up at 9,200 feet. So a modest improvement in air density with respect to takeoff performance. The new airport is located well outside of the old city. I don't know if that was the real objective of building a new airport, to take it out of the city and improve quality of life and decrease pollution in the city centre. But yeah, this is several miles to the east of the downtown. Just a little bit of light morning haze to climb through, by the looks of it. Yeah, now we're starting to get some views. I really haven't seen much of this at all yet, because if you check out episode 15 of the tour, you will see that I did almost a category 2 landing, I guess, when I came into land. It was very, very low visibility. I only just managed to see the airport when minimums were called. So I haven't seen this extraordinary landscape before. That is quite something. It's interesting how the land kind of plateaus and then there are all these ravines in between. So of course the volcano Cotopaxi is just 6 kilometers south of Quito. It's the highest active volcano in Ecuador. And that's something else that we could have seen on the way in but couldn't because of the terrible weather. What we're now going to do is just start heading slightly northeast as we climb out on our way to Panama City. It's about an hour and a half's flying time. I will be time-lapsing the cruise. You can now see the city over there, just about. But a really fascinating landscape. Remember, if you've watched previous episodes, you'll know that I come from Cambridge in the UK. For anyone who doesn't know, Cambridge is an extremely flat area of the UK. You can see for miles, so landscapes like this are quite unfamiliar to me. More stunning scenery here on Flight Sim 2020. I'm just stepping outside the plane for a few moments to enjoy it to the full. So yes, it was a full ILS approach on the way in the last episode, and you can see why, because you wouldn't want to take any chances with this kind of landscape when visibility is practically zero. So let's now time-lapse the cruise. I will speak to you in a little while when we are making our approach into Panama. Welcome back to the flight, and we are now just to the south of Panama City. Now, what we are going to do here is a straightforward visual approach straight into the airport. We are not flying into the main international airport here in Panama. We are going to be flying into a small little airport called the Albrook-Gelabert Airport. I don't know how that's pronounced, so apologies if you do, and I've got it very wrong. The airport we're landing at is very close to the mouth of the Panama Canal. And we are just doing a straightforward visual approach. Or so I hope, in any case. At the moment the clouds look a little bit low, but I'm pretty sure that we'll be able to get underneath them fairly soon. So this just on our left hand side here is Taboga Island. Again, probably pronouncing that really badly. And you can see just down there the Playa de la Isla Taboga, so presumably the Taboga Island beach. And it looks like there are little ferries that go back and forth to the island from the city. Presumably it's just a short hop. I don't know, maybe it's a place you go for a day out or a weekend away or something. Now the Panama Canal is quite interesting because when you look at it, when you think the Panama Canal connects the Pacific Ocean with the Caribbean Sea and thence the Atlantic, you kind of assume it's going to be going from west to east, but it's not like that at all. When you look at a map of Panama City, you realise that the canal kind of goes in a northeasterly direction and cuts through to a place called Colon on the north coast of Panama, which obviously isn't very far, it's a very narrow country. So right now, if you look at the compass, you'll see I'm at 360 degrees, so just slightly northeast, and you can see just through that cloud there the beginnings of the canal. Now we will go down and take a look at the canal. We will in fact fly along the length of the canal up to Colón before heading up to San Jose in Costa Rica. But right now I'm focused on finding this airport, and this is proving to be a little bit more difficult than I'd anticipated because of the low clouds. So we're at 2,600 feet right now. We're also coming in quite fast, doing 190 odd knots. Usual VREF in the TBM 930 is 85 knots. So pulling back on the speed now to try and get that speed down. Just turned off the autopilot and am now flying this manually. I'm just heading a little bit to the left here, because I think the runway is just going to be at our 1 o'clock. Certainly should be, according to the navigation display. If you look at the centre left hand screen, you can see the airport at the end of the pink line. Yes, there it is. Okay, so I can now see the runway. We are coming in really fast, so we need to get the plane slowing down. We're doing twice our VREF at the moment. You can see the canal stretching off there to our left, and the airport now right in front of us. We have a slight crosswind, only 6 or 7 knots, but enough that I can feel it. Quite an interesting little approach here, coming in between these two small hills. So the gear are down. That's giving us a nice bit of drag there, slowing us right up. The flying equivalent of slamming on the brakes. And I'm now going to finally put out the flaps. The PAPI lights on the right hand side of the runway seem to indicate that we're coming in a bit too shallow, but it doesn't feel like it. And there we are, just about meeting our VREF speed at the point where we're right over the touchdown zone. And a solid landing. I think everyone in the back felt that. Okay, so let's slow the plane up. And we've got quite a lot to see in this episode of the TBM 930 World Tour. So, rather than taxi in and shut the plane down, we're going to jump outside the plane in just a few seconds' time and go and explore Panama City. So this is the Panama Canal. This is the Pacific end of the Panama Canal, which we flew over just a short while ago on approach into the airport. And in front of us here you can see the Puente de las Americas, or the Bridge of the Americas, which was built in 1962 and notionally connects North America with South America, at least by road. There are 2 other crossing points along the course of the Panama Canal. If you head south on the bridge, as we're doing just now, you head into the downtown core of Panama City. Panama City is very hot and humid. It has a tropical climate, which is not unusual for this area, but what is quite unique about Panama City is the fact it's home to the 2nd largest rainforest in the Western Hemisphere. It's the only capital city in the world to boast a rainforest within the city limits, which is quite remarkable. Perhaps because of the constant passing trade through the canal, Panama City has also become a multicultural cosmopolitan hub. Business is mostly transacted in English, and the US dollar is widely used, even though the national currency in Panama is the Balboa. And it's also become an international banking centre. It's been quite a prominent player in the international banking sphere since the late 1970s. And you can see here a number of skyscrapers. This is one of the more recent office blocks, which is the F&F Tower, built in 2008. There's some pretty impressive reflective windows. Panama City isn't a huge city in population terms. It's got a population of just 1.5 million, but it is obviously strategically important to the region by virtue of playing such an important role in international trade, with the Panama Canal right on its doorstep. And we're now going to fly along the full length of the Panama Canal all the way up to Colón on the north coast of Panama. Panama is an extremely thin country, so it's not going to take us long to get there at all, and I'm going to time-lapse it. But it will give us the chance to see the full length of the canal and then see where the canal finds its way into the Caribbean Sea. So here we go, runway 1, the runway we landed on just a short while ago. The clouds are still very low. At the moment I've selected 8,000 feet in the primary flight display, but I'm not going to go up to 8,000 feet, otherwise I'm just going to go right over the top of these clouds and I won't be able to see anything. We're going to keep the plane quite low. I'm just going to do a little bit of a turn to the left and find the canal, and then we will follow it all the way up to Colón. And it's not a case of just one long canal. It actually goes into various lakes en route. In particular, it goes into Gatun Lake just before it reaches Colón, so we will see that shortly as well. So, heading over towards the canal, and we can now just see it coming into view. And we will fly along its length. I will time-lapse the footage a little bit. Over the next minute or so we will see the full length of the canal, and then I'm going to speed up the film a little bit faster still and head up towards San Jose, Costa Rica. to the flight, and we are now around about 300 miles north of Colon, where we said farewell to the Panama Canal and are on our approach into San Jose, Costa Rica. Now, a lot of these clouds look a little bit ominous. San Jose, Costa Rica also sits in the middle of a rainforest, so the climate here is equally as tropical as it was down in Panama City. However, the higher altitude here in San Jose means it is not quite as hot as Panama. It rains in San Jose for about 170 days each year. So as you can see, it's quite a undulating terrain down there, but the city is around about at 3,750 to 4,000 feet. I'm making my way into the main international airport, which is in the suburb of Alajuela. Or Alajuela, I think. Again, my Spanish is letting me down there. And I'm just largely doing a visual approach. I'm descending down initially to 7,000 feet. And want to just get a visual check, if I can, of the airport. And we'll then do a circuit and come back round and land from the west. So just on the navigation display, the left hand side of the center screen in the cockpit here, you can see the airport. It's the pink dot labelled MROC, M-R-O-C. Here's the city over to the left of us. And once again, these very humid, steamy clouds are getting in the way and making it difficult to get a visual on where we are planning on landing this thing. Just easing off on the speed gently. I can see actually on the primary flight display that the airport is just down at my 11 o'clock, but I can't see it through these clouds right now. There it is. Okay, good. So that's where we're landing, but we're going to land at the opposite end of the runway. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a circuit here and just do a visual approach. I am doing this on VATSIM, but it's all very quiet. There's nothing down on the ground here. Or certainly no VATSIM traffic on the ground. I think I saw a couple of AI aircraft down there. Just going to go a little bit north of the airport before turning onto a downwind leg. At the moment the wind is showing a sort of a 12 knot wind coming from, well, it's going to be a bit of a crosswind. It's going to be kind of coming from my 10 o'clock once I'm on final approach. I have tuned in the instrument landing system, so on the primary flight display just in front of me you can see the green line on the compass. That is showing the localizer, just to help me find my way in, and that could be quite useful, again given the low cloud here. So now around about 4,700 feet, so only about 1,000 feet to go, I think. And I will start turning onto my base leg very shortly. actually, sorry. The radio altimeter is showing a bit more like 1400 feet, so we have a little bit further, a little bit more ground clearance than I thought. As I said, it's quite an undulating landscape, so it will be a little bit more elevated than I was expecting. Also, just looking at the instrument landing system here, I can now see the glide slope starting to come up on the right hand side, just near the altimeter, so I now know I'm at a decent altitude to make my final approach. So just turning onto base, I now can't see anything at all really. Let's turn on some cockpit lights just so I can check my instruments. Very murky. But it's 21 degrees out there, and as you can see it's evening now here in Costa Rica, so this feels quite hot and humid to me. Okay, I'm going to overshoot the localizer there, so let's just turn off the autopilot, turn off yaw damper, and I'm just going to fly this by hand at this point. And the airport's all the way over there, so I've quite substantially overshot the localizer in fact. So we will now establish from the south, but we don't kind of need the ILS now really, because I can just do this visually. So gear down. Bit of flaps. Full flaps now. In fact, that wind has dropped back a little bit and it is now more of a headwind, so that's helpful.
500.
Coming in a little bit shallow here, so I'm just going to level off. Just wait for that glide slope to drop down a bit. That'll do anyway, and let's hope for a slightly smoother landing than we had in Panama. Yes, that's a lot better. Right, so let's just turn off here onto taxiway Alpha, and I'll just park the plane up and then we'll go and take a quick look at San Jose, Costa Rica. Certainly looks like a very scenic city with lots of hilly and mountainous terrain all around. For several weeks on the TBM 930 World Tour I have been flying through very challenging high altitude terrain, so do check out the last couple of episodes. The journey up from Santiago in Chile all the way up here has been a constant stream of high altitude cities and challenging environments to land into. And actually I found this one harder than I was expecting it as well, given the humidity and the dense cloud there. Dense and very low cloud. So I think I will park up next to this Cessna Citation. and I'll shut the plane down and we can go and see a bit of the capital city of Costa Rica. So San Jose is a pretty small capital city. It's only got an area of 47 square kilometres and it has a population of around about 340,000 people. It is the modern day capital of Costa Rica, but it hasn't always been the capital city. It only became the capital in 1823, 2 years after Costa Rica declared independence from Spain. Before that, the capital city was located in a city called Cartago. And coffee is very important in San Jose. The city was founded in 1737 as a trading centre for coffee plantations. And some of those coffee plantations are located in the lush green hillsides that you can see around the edge of the city. Costa Rica's economy also reflects its tropical climate, and it ranks as the 85th top exporting nation in 2019. In that year, it shipped an estimated $11.5 billion worth of goods, principally comprising bananas and plantains, pineapples, rubber tyres, coffee, and various other tropical fruit and vegetables. Okay, so for the last time in this episode, let's now take off in the TBM 930 and we're going to head further north once again, this time to the capital of Honduras, which is Tegucigalpa. Pretty decent takeoff performance, 90 knots, there we go. Up, up and away. I am just going to keep a careful eye on the weather radar. Some of those clouds look a little bit threatening, but it's fairly clear up ahead, so I might just continue climbing up ahead for the moment and then turn left once we're past this darker grey cloud on our left hand side. Starting again to see a bright array of colours on the terrain map on the centre left screen. Starting to look a little bit clearer off to the left hand side now, so I will start turning left and pick up our flight route up to Tegucigalpa. So we've got a decent rate of climb here, also building up speed nicely. Again, we can now really see all of that lush green vegetation which I was talking about just a few moments ago. Makes Costa Rica such a rich place for tropical produce. So nicely avoided those clouds, quite pleased with that. And from here really the flight route is pretty much northwest all the way. Just taking care also to make sure that I steer well clear of the more elevated terrain, which is just over to the side of me at the moment. You can see that also on that centre left screen. So Tegucigalpa is our next stop. It's our final stop in this episode of the TBM 930 World Tour. I will time-lapse the cruise and I will speak to you very shortly as we make our approach into runway 02 in the Honduran capital. Welcome back to the flight, and welcome now to Tegucigalpa in Honduras. So this airport is world famous for being difficult to land at. Prevailing winds normally mean you land on runway 02, and it's another airport with a hill right at the end of it. We've had a number of challenging landings in the recent episodes of the TBM 930 World Tour. If you haven't seen it, check out episode 15 when I land into Chegual in Peru, which was possibly one of the hardest landings I've ever done. There are a lot of hills and mountains involved there, and it's much the same here as well. So that is Tegucigalpa over there. So that looks okay. On the face of it, that looks okay. But getting into the airport is quite challenging. What we are going to do, and this is all per the Navigraph chart, what we're going to do is go to the north of the airport and do a circuit around, or kind of a circular route around into the airport, and it will then suddenly be on our left hand side. So this is probably about as close to a modern day Kai Tak as I can get. In addition though, one thing that Kai Tak didn't have, but this does, is this elevated ground right at the end of the runway. Now in fairly recent years I believe that they have dug through part of the hillside to improve the safety of the approach. Check it out on YouTube if you've not seen it. You can see some pretty spectacular landing videos at Tegucigalpa where you'll have, you know, American Airlines Boeing 757s coming in with just a few feet of ground clearance on short final. It's a little bit like, in that respect, it's a little bit like Sant Bartholomew in the Caribbean. It's an awful lot easier than that, I should say, but it's similar. So there's that elevated ground right at the end of the runway, which means that the aircraft wheels almost brush the treetops when you're on very short final. As I say, they have made improvements, apparently, so that the hill has been kind of pushed back, they've dug into it, but it is still quite challenging. So at the moment we are around about 8 miles from the waypoint, which is Melvo. I have programmed in, using the VNAV function on the modded up TBM, I have programmed in all the altitudes into the flight management computer. On the chart they are all quite precise. So you can map out exactly where you need to be in altitude terms at each waypoint. And I have never flown into Tegucigalpa before, but I understand that it's actually quite difficult to see the airport until you're right on top of it, which seems a little bit odd, given, you know, the land is actually relatively flat. You've got fair visibility over here, but it's going to be a tight left-hand turn at the very end on short final. So first of all we need to be at 9,000 feet by Melvo, then we go down to 7,786 feet by TG017, which you might be able to see is the next waypoint, and then we go down incrementally from there. The VNAV function on the TBM 930 is a big step forward. It's really, really useful for doing RNAV approaches. and I'm hoping it will make a big difference this time as well. So what I am doing as well is just managing the speed. We had, earlier in the episode, we had quite a fast approach into Panama City. What I'm doing here is just managing the speed so the aircraft doesn't get carried away. We're coming in at a fairly calm and controlled 150 knots, or a little bit over. So here we are, we're over Melvo now, and we are at 9,000 feet, or a fraction below. We are still a little bit out of the city at the moment, so we can't see very much of it. We certainly can't get a visual of the airfield just yet. So let's just take a quick look at the chart of Tegucigalpa, the RNAV runway 02 arrival, and we're doing the north arrival, even though we're actually coming from the south. And as you can see, we need to be at 9,000 feet at Melvo, and then descending to 8,000 feet by TG 017, 7,000 feet by TG 015, 6,776 feet by TG 014, and so on and so on. I have put all of that into the flight management computer, and we have a decision altitude of 4,429 feet. The airport elevation is 3,307 feet. So we're still at fairly high altitude here. Nothing quite like Quito at the beginning of the episode, but still well above sea level. What you can also see on the chart here is how you're kind of navigating around a number of smaller peaks which circle the city, if you like. And this gives us a precise route to make our way into the airport. If we need to go mist, which I'm sincerely hoping we won't have to do, but if we were to, then we need to make our way back up to Melvo and give it another try. So TG015 is next. That takes us down to 7,000 feet. You can see that in the primary flight display just in front of me, I have selected 7,000 feet, and I can now just make sure that I'm descending at the right rate to stay on the desired VNAV profile. Interested to see how other people might use the VNAV function on the TBM 930. For me, I tend to use it alongside the flight level change mode, which I just find it quite handy because you can just make tiny adjustments to the thrust setting, and that helps me kind of keep on the desired profile a little bit more easily. If I set it to a set vertical speed, that doesn't seem to work very well. I'm forever having to adjust that. So we're now leveling out around about 7,000 feet, but our next waypoint we need to be at 5,600. You can see the little purple arrow on the primary flight display is now just above us, so we are level at 7,000 feet, waiting for that purple line to drop back down to the centre, and then I can continue the descent as we make our way in. So it's certainly nothing as difficult as Chagual, but it is still limited on ground clearance here. I'm only 2,500 feet, according to the radio altimeter, above the landscape we can see down here. Still with a few thousand feet to descend into the airport. have said this before on various episodes, but this is not rehearsed. As I say, I haven't actually flown to Tegucigalpa before on Flight Sim, haven't been there in real life either. So I am doing this for the first time. When I'm doing that, like I say, the first thing I try and do is manage the speed. I didn't do that very well in Panama, to be honest, but Panama was relatively straightforward in comparison to this. So there is the city over there, and I can't see anything of an airfield over there. Can't see the airport at all. So we're just going to continue following the white line on our navigation display. And just wait until we get to that last waypoint where we have to make a visual turn to the left and line up with runway 02. Still can't see anything at the airport out there. Let's just take another quick look at the chart. So we've just come over TG012. So not very far to go now. And once again we are getting a very, very colourful navigation display in the centre as the terrain map starts to indicate just how close we are to the ground here. So at TG011 we need to be at 4,144 feet, which you can see I have programmed in. And I still can't see the airport. Yeah, maybe I can. It's quite difficult. The point is that I'm pretty much perpendicular to the airport right now. And that seems to have the impact of making the airport just disappear into the city scenery. There's a sort of a small patch of green over there. I assume it's that. I think the runway is going to be in there somewhere. Still on autopilot for the moment. Just following the white line. And I'm now pretty sure that that must be the airport over there. I think I can see the control tower. And we will be making that turn to the left now in just a few seconds' time.
500.
I can now see the airport. I can see the runway, I can see that displaced threshold and the small bit of elevated terrain right at the end. So it's one thing doing this in a TBM 930, imagine doing this in a 757 or something. I bet pilots love it, but I'm pretty certain passengers won't. Just skirting past those trees, just about. And I think we're home and dry now. Happy with that. For my first approach into Tegucigalpa, that went quite well. Again, quite lucky that the weather was with us on this occasion. I'm not sure whether that approach is really possible in limited visibility. I suppose it is, although you would need a mile or two of visibility just at that, just at the end there to make sure you get the turn right. Okay, so let's exit onto taxiway Alpha. and we'll park up the plane. In the next episode of the TBM 930 World Tour, we will take a quick look at Tegucigalpa before continuing our journey north. Turn off the strobes. Oh! Almost losing my way on the taxiway there. So, landing lights now to taxi. And just coasting our way in. So Quito, Panama City, San Jose, Costa Rica, and Tegucigalpa, Honduras have been the destinations in this episode of the TBM 930 World Tour. Haven't yet decided where we're going exactly in the next episode, in episode 17. But I think Mexico City is going to feature, which I'm quite excited about. And we will likely make our way back into North America after several months exploring South America, and in this episode Central America. Do check out the other episodes in the tour if you've enjoyed watching this one. We started off in Cambridge in the UK. We went up to Scotland, over to Iceland, to Greenland. We've flown through Canada. We went to Toronto, and then over to Chicago, then to New York, down to Florida, down to Cuba, down to Jamaica, down to Caracas, and then we did a big tour through South America. In this episode we've left South America and explored a bit of Central America. It seems quite amazing to think that we will soon be back in North America. If you've enjoyed watching this, please do click on the subscribe button, click like, click on the bell if you'd like to hear about future uploads. I'll be back with episode 17 of the TBM World Tour, TBM 930 World Tour very, very soon. And look out for other short and long haul flying on both MSFS 2020 and on Prepare 3D V5 here on the Airborne Lawyer YouTube channel. Many thanks for watching, and I will speak to you again very soon.